打包清醒的我 You know you are not alone. If we go together easier. Feel good. It's like climbing the highest hill to touch the stars and feel Jesus Christ in your heart. Charity is love in action. Charity is light in the soul, light in everything around us. It's not just the beginning. Charity is the way. And then, while the new world doesn't come, you have to change what is holding us. Together we can believe to get to the desired promised land. Give your hand and embrace the world. It's up to us, so let's go. Because charity is love in action. Charity is light in the soul, light in everything around us. It's not just the beginning. Charity is the way. Charity is love in action. Charity is light in the soul, light in everything around us. It's not just the beginning. Charity is the way.
So let's have our opening prayer, closing our eyes, opening our hearts, feeling the presence of Jesus here with us, feeling the presence of the good spirits and the mentors that are blessing this work in this moment, and opening our hearts wide open to feel the good vibrations that are being emanated by the good spirits, as well as through our connection one to another, each one of us here tonight by a divine appointment. And we ask for light in our hearts for our subject matter tonight, which is charity. Also, the name of the song we just heard, charity is love in action. Charity is light in the soul. And may our message tonight help us to have a deeper appreciation for the spiritual power of charity in our lives, on the physical realm and on the spiritual realm. May the peace and love of Jesus be with us now and always. So be it. So I'm so glad that you were all here tonight. Welcome to our lecture tonight about the Auta de Souza food drive and the truth about it, which is that charity is the way. My name is Cara Valentino, and I'm really grateful to be here tonight, broadcasting from my home, but also as part of the Light of the Soul Christian Spiritist Center located in Apex. And I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about the history of the Auta de Souza food drive. What is the purpose of the work and why we do this work? So the first question, of course, is, well, who is Auta de Souza, right? And she was born around the turn of the century in Brazil, extremely wise, extremely bright, a prodigy, if you will. She began writing poetry at a very early age. And before she even turned 18, many of the local newspapers and magazines were already publishing her work, she was a very mystical poet. And so her poems inspired this deep feeling of connection to the divine realm. And this is part of what made her work so amazing, and especially at such a young age. And also, as you can see from her photo, she was a young Black woman. And the colonial times in Brazil are, really no different from colonial times here in the States, in the sense that there was still very much a lot of racism. Slavery was just on the shoulder of being ended. And also at that time, gender inequities, just as are often present still today, were very much in existence. And so she was moving through all of that to still have these profound poems that were being produced. But even then, her health was very poor, and she got ill when she was in her early teens with a disease that ended up ending her life. And even though she died, I think, in 1901, physically, her spiritual life very much continued, and she continued to transmit her work through the psychography. And psychography is a type of mediumship that Chico Xavier, a very famous medium in Brazil, was able to demonstrate his mediumship. This is the kind of mediumship where a spirit will come through a medium and actually take control of the medium's hand and write beautiful messages, whether it's books or poems or whatever it is that particular spirit wishes to transmit through the willing and sensitive medium. And so Chico Xavier, in his lifetime, psychographed more than, I think, 700 books. And if you do the math, that's almost a book a month, if not more than that. And because he didn't live to be 700 years old, of course, right? And that's like not humanly possible. Any author will tell you that it takes at least a year to write a book, and maybe 9 months if you have a really good editor and a really strong ghostwriting team, if you will. But to write books once a month is almost unheard of. It's literally not physically possible, which is how we know that this psychography from Chico Xavier is just very indicative of his sensitivity and profoundness as a medium. And so she began to transmit through her messages through Chico Xavier. And this is how we learned of Auta de Souza. So here's a little bit more about her that I think you will find interesting. And I hope that you join me on this wonderful journey to learn more about this amazing young woman and how she continues to affect our charity work today. So the history of the food drive, it started in 1953 in Sao Paulo by Nympho Correia, who wanted to have a campaign to collect donations of food on the street and then give them to the poor, right? To have a street food campaign, if you will. And so I decided to call it just the Fraternal Food Drive. And this was not easy work, at that time to go and ask for food. A lot of times the doors would be shut in their face, or people would say unkind things when they were knocking on the doors, and they were really struggling. And so when they arrived in Pedro Leopoldo, they at the Spiritist Center where Chico Xavier was working, Auta de Souza came and provided this very consoling messages to this group of workers that were working on what was called the Fraternal Food Drive at that time. And you can see that this message, just a kind of excerpt from it, that was urging them to unify in this work of bringing the homes that they were visiting friendly words and enlightening messages about the good news of Jesus, and specifically to go two and two and preach my gospel, and to also assist and inspire and support them in the struggles for the continuity of the work. And so after hearing this message with these contents, they were inspired, right, to name the campaign that used to be called the Fraternal Food Drive to the Auta de Souza Food Drive. And sometimes it's also called the Auta de Souza Fraternal Campaign, depending on which, depending on which aspect of the food drive that you see we are serving in. But this information comes from the Auta de Souza Fraternity Campaign. This is a book that's not in English yet, but it's the book the Auta de Souza group that guides the group of Spiritist centers and the fraternal charity work that's done in the name of Auta de Souza. And this is from a translation of that book. And so a little bit more to just kind of give you some context, right? Like, what's the purpose? Like, what were the objectives of this food drive? In addition, of course, to what Auta de Souza had recommended when she brought this message to those workers through that psychograph message from Chico Xavier. And so the first objective was to disseminate Spiritism in homes, right? To bring to each of those homes where the workers were asking for food donations, but also to bring an enlightening message as well. So, the workers would knock on the door, the people would answer, and then they would be given a message and also asked if they had any donations of food that they could give to these workers of this Auta de Souza food drive, so that the workers who collected the food could give it to the hungry and needy families in the area. But it was also to bring them that good message that once the door was open, there was this opportunity to have, a good conversation about some beautiful, enlightening messages. And it was also, as said, to collect the donations of food that could be distributed to those who needed it, whether being assisted by that local Spiritist center or by or any foods that wasn't donated would be given to the local food pantry. So this was the idea of the food drive. And also, it was a benefit for each of those workers, right? Because, when we're out there asking for donations to help people who are hungry, that's a very humble place to be, right? And it's also when you're maybe being received when you knock on the door, sometimes by people who are suffering and may not always have a kind word or an uplifting message to return to you, that also requires tolerance and also what we call moral charity. This ability to understand that many of our brothers and sisters are suffering on many levels, and for us to react in kind is often our first inclination. And to not do that and to swallow that and instead find a place of love and peace inside of us and to transmit that, that is a very powerful way to heal our own sick soul. We're all here to heal. We're all here to transform. And so because of this work, it really, the Auta de Souza food drive becomes like this medicine, like this spiritual medicine for the workers themselves. So this is the intention. And as we can see, and we'll learn tonight a little bit more about how this actually works, because it's one of the most beautiful byproducts of this work that there is. But there are these physical aspects, right? You go and you knock on the door, you ask for food, you collect the food, you go give it. These are physical things. And we see that there's also some benefits to the physical workers, right? But there's also spiritual aspects to the food drive as well. For example, when we go to these homes and you knock on the door, well, remember, there's 5 to 7 brothers or sisters on the spiritual realm for every one of us. So the first person who answers the door already has 5 to 7 brothers and sisters on the spiritual realm without bodies, disincarnated souls that are already with that one person. And then no matter how many people there are in their home, there's 5 to 7 for each one of those alive and at home. And the first person and these brothers and sisters, many of them are suffering. And so when the door is answered, there's this opportunity for the ones that are with that brother or sister to receive the messages that are brought, as well as if the person offers donations, right, then they also receive some education to see what charity in action looks like. So there's this initial opportunity for both assistance and education for the brothers and sisters on the spiritual realm that are in that home, and also really in the whole neighborhood that is being served. And there's this story, in the early times of the fraternal campaign from that Nympho Correa was organizing, where there was a medium. We talked about Chico Xavier being the kind of medium that is a psychographer. He writes, it's a writing medium, a medium who receives the information from the spirit and writes it. Well, there are also seeing mediums who can actually see the brothers and sisters on the spiritual realm, the brothers and sisters without bodies. So I don't have either one of those gifts. And so I cannot tell you what that's like, but as we are told, there was a seeing medium that was doing the work with this group with Nympho Kohea that said, I'm not feeling very comfortable about this work, providing spiritual help, because every time we come back to the Spiritist Center after we've collected all these food donations, there's a lot, there's this one lady on the spiritual realm, and she's bringing a whole lot of really suffering spirits with us back to the center. And I think this is probably not a good thing. It's making me uncomfortable. And it turns out that the young woman on the spiritual realm that was bringing all these suffering spirits was actually Auta de Souza. And she was bringing the brothers and sisters who were suffering back to the Spiritist Center for treatment on the spiritual realm, for them to be treated and then taken to the hospitals and assistance centers in the spiritual colonies. So this is really powerful. This is now what the assistance looks like, right? When the food drive is in action. And so in addition to that, there's also disobsession work that often takes place right during that food drive, right? Where you go and you knock on the door, and then if the person who answers the door is suffering from obsession, there are times when those brothers and sisters receive assistance from the good spirits of the Auta de Souza campaign. She has a bunch of good spirits that work in the campaign as well, that assist these brothers and sisters who are suffering and often do disobsession work. There's another story that I love so much that's also was from those early days, where one of the workers, they were going to a house, and as they were on their way up to this house to knock on the door and ask for donations, this one medium was having a very strong feeling, like negative energy. And she said, I don't want to go to that house. And another one said, no, let's go to the house. I have a strong feeling we should go there. If we have this bad energy, there may be someone who needs to be assisted. So as the story goes, they go, it's always 2 and 2, right? It's always a pair. So the 2 of them, they go and knock on the door, and the woman who answers the door is very unhappy. And so one of them says, greetings, sister, we're coming to ask you for donations of food for us to give to the hungry. And the woman said some mean things to her and slammed the door and said, don't come back to my house. And so the first one, who had like the not good vibration, said, see, I told you this probably wasn't a good idea. And she said, no, we're going to come back next week again and come back to the same house. And the other friend was like, I don't know. So a week later, they come back, and again, the first one is feeling these very strong bad vibrations, and the other one says, no, I feel very strongly we are to come visit this house. So they knock on the door, and the woman says, it's you again? And she starts screaming at them again. And then the woman, the second worker, held out her hands like this, and she said, please, do you have any donations for the hungry children in the area? And the woman who had answered the door, that was so angry, spit in her hands. Now just imagine that. I mean, that's kind of a horrifying thing to happen, right? And so what did the young woman whose hands had been spit in do? Did she hit the woman? Did she say bad words back to her? Did she leave? No, she took her hands with that spit and held it to her heart and said, and they say that she actually incorporated Auta de Souza and said, this is probably what I deserve from bothering you. I'm sorry for bothering you in your home. And then she held out her hands again and said, but I wonder if you have something sweet that you would love to give to these hungry children in the area. And they say at that moment, a disobsession took place, and whatever was the spirit that was having the lady who answered the door who lived there act so unhappily left her. Her eyes softened, and she said, I would be happy to. And she went to her kitchen and she brought back like a big pound of sugar and put that in the woman's hands, and then they left. That's such a profound story, right? I don't know that if someone spit into my hands, I do a lot of charity work with our Spiritist Center. I don't know what I would do, but it just shows the moral charity. It shows like what happens when we are willing to do the work of kindness, and also to not return the suffering energy of spirits with what they have given us. And so other spiritual aspects, it also provides like this vibratory defense for the Spiritist Center, and this happens because it's this vibratory defense happens because of the powerful thoughts, the kind thoughts, the elevated thoughts that we actually have to hold in our minds in order to do this work. Collectively doing this work, and the benefit of the Spiritist Center actually helps the Spiritist Center itself, not just through the collection of the energy of the thoughts of the workers, but also all of the assistance that we have, right? So all of the good spirits that are helping this work will also provide a powerful form of protection for collectively for the Spiritist Center. And even though at this time we're not really in a physical building due to the World Health situation, but we still have this virtual space, and there's still the collective energy that has been harmonized by all the workers who are doing this charity work, and that work is protected. So this is really a beautiful thing. And then lastly, and I think most importantly, in that song that we heard at the beginning, it said, charity is love in action, charity is light in the soul. And it is a very true statement. We know this from what we've heard from the good spirits and what we've been told, that when we are doing charity work, it is the most unselfish thing that we could do. And selfishness is really the primary spiritual illness that we see on our beautiful water planet here. There's not one type of suffering, there's not one act of unkindness that cannot be distilled down to the root cause of selfishness. There's no evil on this planet that does not have its root in selfishness. And so charity is the most powerful medicine for that, because that's when we have to be selfless in order to be willing to offer a piece of ourselves, our time, our talent, our treasure in service of those who are suffering more than we are. That is literally the most unselfish that we can be in this time. And so it's a powerful medicine for us too. So this is for us to think about. And so I would like to now that you know a little bit about the background of the food drive and how it came to be, and what the intentions of the food drive are, what some of the spiritual aspects are. I'd like to talk a little bit about how we put this into action in the Light of the Soul Spiritist Center before, of course, we had the pandemic, right? So what we would do before is every week, we'd like to map out a section of a neighborhood, and we would go knock on each door and ask if they had any food donations, just like they were doing in Brazil. And we would do each neighborhood in 2-week segments. So the first week we would bring like beautiful messages, we'd ask for donations, but we didn't ask them to bring it to the door the same day. We would go back the following week. We would say, hey, we're going to come back the same time next week. And if you have any donations you'd like to leave, you can put them out on your porch and we'll pick them up. And in the following week, we'd bring a thank you message, and then we pick up the donations. And both times they're receiving spiritual assistance. And many times I can tell you, we've had situations where people necessarily, are not very kind to us. And, we still like hold the energy, the positive energy of prayer. We still do. There's a lot of prayer work that still takes place. And so we alternate like this throughout the month. And then at the end of the month, everything we collected, we would give it monthly to the refugee center in Raleigh. And then with next month, we'd start over again, right? So you collect all month, and then we'd give it away. And then whatever food items that the people at the refugee center did not want, then we would just give those to the food bank. So we're basically doing it exactly like, it was designed in Brazil. But we can't do it like that now, because going door to door, like that doesn't quite work in these times, right? So what we're doing now, this is an example of our July calendar, right? So we still do the alternating thing, but what we do now, for example, like on January 10th, we'll also give donations because we've been collecting them for all month, right? But at 2 p.m., we send a donation request letter. We do this online. We post a letter on like Nextdoor in our neighborhoods. We post it on Facebook and WhatsApp, and so we post these requests. And then the following Saturday, just like we used to do before, we pick them up, but we offer contactless pickups. We just say, leave it on your porch, and then we take the donations to our storage, and then we organize them. And then same thing, we alternate. And then the following week, we give the donations out to the homeless. Except I'm not using that word anymore. I prefer the term unsheltered, Because calling someone homeless, it's kind of giving them an identity based on their housing situation. When their housing situation, they're still people and human beings, they're just unsheltered at that time. And that's a term that's becoming more used by the compassionate community. And I think I like that term better. So we give donations to the unsheltered brothers and sisters, and then we kind of cycle through this. So this is kind of what we're doing now in more of a contactless way, right? Given the world situation right now. And so all of these opportunities are also open for volunteering, right? You do not have to be a member of the Spiritist Center to do this. We invite our family, our friends, people bring their children. It's quite beautiful. And I have some pictures to show you all as well. But I'd like to tell you a little bit more about how we do this. So when we send the letters, this is the kind of thing that we ask. We would try to touch the hearts of the people who are receiving these letters, because we're receiving them online. We're not knocking on their door. So this is an electronic viewing, if you will. And even when we gather on these days that we send the donation request letter, we still pray together, we sing, we harmonize, we say special prayers that every person that reads the post would feel a place in their heart to open up and be willing to give some of what has become extra for them. So these are the kinds of things we ask, right? We say, do you have all the clothes that you don't wear anymore? And a lot of times people who recommend decluttering say anything you haven't worn in more than a year, it's time to give it away. You're not going to wear it, right? And we also ask them, can you imagine, how grateful that you'll feel when you give that to someone, who needs it, right? And you have extra space and you have an opportunity to give it to someone who's going to love that very thing that you're tired of. And then we also ask, for like the toiletries if they have them. And then ask them, if their heart's open to do that, then on the attached flyer, and I'll show you what the flyer looks like, we tell them we will have contactless pickups. And we tell them they can comment below and leave us a message, and just ask them to leave their bags on their porch. And we tell them a little bit about who we are. And also, it's so interesting, we noticed that people would ask us, well, are you going to sell my donations? So we learned to say, no, we don't sell them. We always give them away. And then people ask us, are you legit? Are you an actual nonprofit? Yes, we are. We're a 501c3. We can give you a tax receipt. And then we also offer them an opportunity to volunteer if they want to do that as well, right? So we want to make sure that we are also making opportunities for other people to engage in charity, because that not only assists them, but of course, all of the other spiritual aspects. And it also potentially has the opportunity for us to grow our Spiritist Center to spread the enlightening and illuminating messages of Spiritism to brothers and sisters who may not have heard of them before, which, by the way, is exactly what Auta de Souza said she wanted that original fraternal campaign to do, right? To go 2 and 2 in their name and to spread the messages. And so this is an example of a letter that we send. And then this is like the flyer that we send, and we almost always put a message here. And I love this message. It's one of my favorite ones, because sometimes charity work can be tiring, right? And so this is something to me that's always uplifting. And I would like to read it. It says, if you feel tired, then get over your tiredness with nature. Absorb the energies you need from its inexhaustible sources. And do not establish a closed circuit of non-renewable energy between your body and your mind. Disclose your spirit like flowers do, opening them to the vitalizing sunbeams. Take a deep breath and absorb the vital principles with which the air aromatizes itself. As much as possible, contemplate with tenderness a bird's nest on a tree branch, and allow your hands to feel the water falling for your feet. Pay attention to the lights of the nightfall and to the twinkling of the first stars in the sky. And take off your shoes and have direct contact with the magnetism of the ground. Caress a robust tree trunk and try to feel the life beating in it. And feel delighted with the magnificent show of the rain falling in the forest. And then, after being renewed, continue to work for the good. And this is from our mentor, Brother Joseph, in one of my favorite books, Better Days. And so why this is important is that we can renew ourselves in nature. Many of us are exhausted, and it's not even from charity work, right? So it's important for us to spend some time in the sun, spend some time around the trees, We've learned from Andre Luis in both Nasular and in the book The Messengers that there is lots of beautiful magnetic vibrations that are healing and restorative that we can receive when we spend time in nature. So this is a good reminder for us, right? And then these are like, again, the list of the things that we ask our friends when we request these donation letters to share with us. And then we go the following week to pick them up, and then we organize them. And just this last week, we did some organizing. And here's a picture of what the workers were working with last year. This is our storage, and the storage place goes about this far back. That's what's not in the picture. These were the donations that we collected throughout the month. And so one of the first things we do is to, physically sort through the donations. But remember, for every physical act, there is a corresponding spiritual act. So as we're sorting through the donations, there's always the work we do inside. It's like, what gets kept? And then what are we sorting inside? What are we willing to let go of as we sort? Because for example, we discard clothing that is stained. We discard clothing that is ripped or unusable. We discard clothing that we would not wear, right? If we wouldn't want to give it to an unsheltered brother or sister if it was too stained or unsuit for purpose, right? But as we're doing that, we're also sorting ourselves, right? We're organizing ourselves as we do that. We're looking within us for what we can let go, right? What part of our character is stained and can be released? Or what part of the old man or the old woman or the old young person, right? The parts of our character that are ready to be released that we could also throw out with those old clothes. There's always that opportunity. No physical work can take place without a spiritual opportunity. And we intend to make the most of it when we do this work on behalf of the center. And then, there's the packing and the labeling because we need to sort it out like by gender and age. And we're also organizing our inner world too, right? Because there's, when we do that organizing of what's left, that's what we're willing to donate. That's what's fit for giving. And then we look inside ourselves and say, what in us is fit for giving? What's the best part of my character? What's the best part of me that I could give? Because that best part of us is something that is never depleted by giving it. In fact, when we give from the best part of ourselves, that actually magnifies it. It goes against logic, but when we give of the best part of ourselves, we always see it magnified. And then, as also part of this, our preparation, right, we load the cars up with what we're going to go and give. And then again, we can look at ourselves, right? Well, what resources am I loading into my own spiritual growth, right? As I load these cars, what am I accumulating in my own being that I can actually take with me, right? Because the stuff we're putting in the cars is physical, it's transitory. We don't bring it with us when we drop this physical body and we enter into the spiritual realm. But what do we accumulate in terms of our spiritual evolution that we can take with us? We can begin to reflect on this because at the time of doing charity work is when we are actually producing the type of moral transformation that we can bring with us, not the physical things themselves, but the transformation of our own character, right? So this is for us to think about. And then when we go to give the donations we used to do it again at the end of the month, but now we do it every other week because, interestingly, we're getting a lot of donations asking for them online. First we harmonize as workers, we sing, we have some music. As workers, we harmonize together through prayer. And then for the brothers and sisters that are there, that are unsheltered, we do the gospel, we read something from the gospel, we talk about it with them, and we also do some passes with them, and just generally to raise the vibration and to clean the area spiritually so that there's a opportunity for that spiritual work that we talked about to be done, for the disobsession work, for the education and assistance of the spirits. And many times it's through the passes work itself that a lot of disobsession work takes place as well, where brothers and sisters who have been attached to some of these unsheltered brothers and sisters are freed and then able to receive assistance from the good spirits of the Auta de Souza campaign. And so this is what we do it says monthly, but we actually go twice a month now, right? So we go next door to Urban Ministries. This picture is the name of the church that's right next door. So we set up there just out on the sidewalk. We kind of hang clothes along the fence there so that they can see them. We usually have between 5 to 10 volunteers per month, and it's about 75 to 90 of them that come. And we do this twice a month. And as you can see, this first picture is where we give out clothing. And then the second picture, we actually make a lunch bag, if you will, because the urban ministry serves breakfast on Saturday mornings. And so we go Saturday mornings as well. And since they're getting a hot breakfast, we make a bag with like turkey sandwiches or chicken sandwiches and like cakes and cookies and granola bars and fruit and juice. So they can take that bag with them so they can eat it later if they want to. And many times we have extra food, so then they can take a couple of extra bags as well. And you can see some of our young people and some of the workers from the center that are handing out the bags to the brothers and sisters there. And the things that we give out and what are mostly needed, are food, right, and clothing, obviously, but bags like backpacks or duffel bags, because these unsheltered brothers and sisters need things to hold their belongings in because they don't have any place to store them. And also like shoes and boots and socks. These are the things that we need the most. And so then when we are giving the donations, here's where it kind of gets interesting, right? Because even when we do the gospel and we do the passes and we have the beautiful music playing, sometimes, the energy of the unsheltered brothers can be kind of intense, right? It can be kind of intense. So we have this huge opportunity as workers to just hold the vibration of intense prayer. And one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen is one time a few weeks ago, one brother came and you could tell that he was perturbed, right? He was a little bit disturbed. And you just saw like about 3 or 4 workers just stand near him with just their hands up and just sent this brother so much light. Like you could literally see, like I don't see the light, I'm not that kind of sensitive medium, but I could see that this brother was being transformed. I could see light come behind his eyes, and he just all of a sudden just got quiet, and then he just smiled and walked away. And none of the brothers and sisters that were praying said anything. I just knew that we were all praying, right? And this is just let this sink in for a minute. This is one little street on one little city on one little Saturday twice a month. What would happen if more people started doing this and this kind of spread? Just spending a day giving away some things and praying for the ones who are suffering. Imagine the transformation of our planet. Just think a little big for a minute, right? Imagine how beautiful that would be. And also, what is, to me, there's like challenges and opportunities. One of the most beautiful opportunities, and the thing that honestly, it's hard not to cry when I talk about it, but it's tears of joy. This is not sadness, but so many of them, when they come to receive the breakfast or the whatever they have, we greet them and we say, what's your name? How are you? And so many of them, and we look them in the eyes, and say, good morning, how are you? What's your name? I'm Cara, I'm Chiago, I'm whoever's speaking. And you can just see their faces light up that people don't look at them. People don't talk to them. And if you think about the times that a homeless brother or sister or an unsheltered brother or sister has asked you for a few dollars, do you look them in the eye when you give them that? Like, do you ask them their name? Ask them how they're doing? There's something so beautiful that happens, just that temporary connection of 2 souls. That's just, there's no feeling quite like it. It's the most beautiful, transformational feeling I've ever felt. It's, it makes me feel like for just a few minutes that perhaps I'm doing something like really noble with my life. So it's really, really quite beautiful. And if you've never experienced that, I invite all of you to consider joining us on Saturdays, and I'll make sure that you all have the information on how to do that. So there's this opportunity for us to think about what we can learn from charity. This is also another message from Brother Jose. This is the Brother Joseph that wrote the book, Better Days. And this is so beautiful. He says that the practice of charity will always give you the best lessons. And, when we are giving, it's not like to learn, right? We're just trying to give, but it actually brings us all these lessons. For example, it will provide material for your reflections about the blessings you normally ignore in your life. Just this one line alone. I don't know about you all, but when I got up this morning, My house was exactly the temperature I wanted it to be. It was very hot outside. A lot of the country is experiencing heat waves, but my air conditioning was set to 71 degrees. My house was very comfortable when I woke up. I woke up in a bed that was extremely comfortable, in a room that was safe, that had all of its windows locked, its doors locked. I was able to go in my bathroom and wash in clean water at exactly the temperature that I wanted it in. And then I was able to, after bathing in this nice, very nice, clean bathroom that was free from anything that was unsafe, I was able to go into my closet and choose the outfit of my choice from clothing that was clean and appropriate for the weather and the times. And I had choices from multiple outfits, right? And then in my nice outfit, I then had the opportunity to go into my kitchen and to prepare whatever I wanted to eat or drink from clean water that was readily available at whatever temperature I wanted from my faucet, to a refrigerator full of clean, healthy food choices, cabinets full of clean dishes. And you see where I'm going with this? I had all of these opportunities, and at every step of the way, my physical body was safe. I had my children, both my children in my home. They were safe, they were healthy. Every single thing that I've listed, all of these are blessings that we ignore. But every single thing that I said, that I would imagine that most of you, if not all of you on this call with me, also enjoy, do we remember that there are people all around the world, thousands of people that are crying their eyes out because they wish they had even one of those things? There are people around the world who travel on foot for miles for just a little bit of drinking water. And when they get it, it's not necessarily clean, much less the temperature that it's wanted. Right. So when we take time to give, you guys start to get in touch. Then you look at these brothers and sisters that have none of the things that I just listed, a whole crew of them, 75 to 90 of them. So charity can give us reflections, right, about the blessings we have, and also enable us to see what we don't see in the privileges that we enjoy. What if tomorrow morning, when you woke up in your bed and the house was the temperature you wanted it to be, thank you, God, for the environment I live in. And you get out of your comfortable bed with nice linens on it, right? Thank you, God, for this beautiful place to sleep. Thank you for waking me up. And then you get out on the floor, and the floor of your house is not dirt. Maybe it's wood, maybe it's carpet, but it's a floor that is free of contaminants. Thank you for this clean floor. You see what I'm saying? Like, we have so many opportunities to be grateful. And if you were with me last week, you remember that the attitude of gratitude shifts the water in our body. It changes its molecular structure to a beautiful, symmetrical, crystalline object of beauty, and completely transforms our physical bodies. This is just the second part of this, right? And then, but here's the thing. Most of us, we're not satisfied with what we have. We have a 1-bedroom house. We want a 2-bedroom house, even though we can't keep our 1-bedroom house clean, right? We have a small car. We want a bigger car, even though we don't keep that small car clean. We have how many untold number of pairs of shoes or outfits, but we're still online shopping for clothes and shoes. Like, there's just no satisfaction with any of it, with any of what we have. We're always looking for something better. But charity gives us an opportunity for us to soften in that and to see how much excess we have. If I asked each one of you to tell me, in fact, if you're willing to do so, just put them in the chat right now. Just type the word yes. If you have clothes and shoes in your house right now that you have not worn in more than 1 year, just be honest. I just want to see the chat full of yeses if that's true. I'm not going to ask you how many items, how many pairs, how many pieces of clothes. I just want to know, am I the only one? Yes, after all this work of charity, I still got stuff I have not worn in more than 1 year. So we got 2 that are willing to say yes. I'm going to add my name here because I'm a third person. So only 3 of them. Okay, 4. Okay, yeah, okay. There. Oh, yes. Okay. Right. So we have excess In fact, did you all know that I don't know about in other countries. I know we've got folks from different countries on the call today. I know we have folks in, Canada and Brazil. I know we have people in different countries. But did you all know in America that the #1 fastest growing industry, it's storage. It is public storage. The storage unit industry is the fastest growing industry. And if you live in the North Carolina area, you can't even drive 2 blocks without seeing a public storage place. And these places are booming because we have so much stuff that it doesn't even fit in our houses. We buy stuff and put it in storage. Okay, let's just let that. So this idea that charity softens, as this shows us, we still have excess because we do. Look at the number of yeses in there, right? But then it also teaches us that we have infinite resources inside ourselves that we disregard. We're so busy trying to get more, even though we've demonstrated we have excess. We're so busy trying to get more that we forget that we have this infinite resources inside of us. Remember earlier when we talked about that there's this, what happens within us when we look within, we're sorting ourselves when we're organizing the donations, and we look inside of ourselves, what's the best part of us that we have to give? That's only the beginning. We haven't even taken the time to look within ourselves to see what spiritual resources we have, what character attributes we have that we could polish and offer. Like this charity work gives us this lesson, this opportunity to do that. And get this, that our capacity to be useful is as broad as the needs of others. Think about that, that our capacity to be useful is just as big as those that are suffering as what they need. That is a match made in heaven. This is part of the beauty of being willing to do charity work. And these last 2 messages, which I think are the most beautiful part of this, these last 2 lines here that say, living in charity will give you the spiritual maturity that only she, charity, is capable of. It will put silence on your lips, discernment in your ears, and joy in your hands. Because, my brothers and sisters, when we are in the presence of these human beings that are suffering because they are unsheltered, what can we really complain about? We're going to complain about your nice bed. You're going to complain about your nice floor. You're going to complain because you're in a 1-bedroom, not a 2-bedroom. These brothers and sisters would be happy for a hotel room. We're going to, listen for all of the discontent that we have about the quality of our lives? Or do we listen and with discernment for opportunities to be of assistance? Listening to the names of these brothers and sisters when they're finally asked for the first time what their name is, and hearing their thank yous and understanding that that's far more powerful of a set of words than we could say to ourselves about what we think we don't have, right? And then that's where we really find the joy in our hands. And there is always, I have never heard anyone who does charity work tell me otherwise. The old saying is true. There is more joy in giving than receiving. I promise you, there is more joy in giving than receiving. And so this is what we had time for tonight. There's a short message from Auta de Souza. This poem is in Portuguese. It's been translated to English. There's this brother named Publio, and he has actually composed music to Auta de Souza's poems. So the song he's going to sing is in Portuguese, but I put the English translation here for you, my friends. And then after this, we will have our passes. So I wanted to make sure that you all have an opportunity to get your water so that we will be blessed as we have our passes. So first, this beautiful song, and then those of you, again, that are only English speakers, at the end of each line, there's an obvious pause in the music, and then you can just go to the next line. And that way you can follow along with what this beautiful brother is singing about this poem from Auta de Souza. And it will play.
Gratidão e trabalho. feiticeiro, desvendando a palavra de esperança. Retira o véu da letra santa e avança, e revela a verdade ao mundo inteiro. Em tua alma a pureza da criança, no olhar o jeito simples e fagueiro, e as pérolas de luz do teu celeiro são frutos do trabalho que não cansa. Todo bem que fizeres onde fores é alívio a mitigar alheias dores, é amor de coração contrito em prece. Por toda a gratidão em teu caminho, ouvirás uma voz bem de mansinho. É Jesus que sorrindo te agradece. Todo bem que fizeres onde fores é alívio a mitigar alheias dores, é amor de coração contrito em prece. E por toda a gratidão em teu caminho, ouvirás uma voz bem de mansinho. É Jesus que sorrindo te agradece. Te agradece.
So let's prepare now for the passes. Just asking you to find a comfortable way to sit and calming yourself inside, closing your eyes, feeling the presence of the good spirits here with us. And imagining now that we have the presence of our guardian angel by our side, while we ask for the peace of God to be with us now, and for the friendly spirits that welcome us in the spiritual environment of our home. We open our hearts. We open our heart chakra, and a feeling of love and forgiveness and light involves our heart in this moment. And so we begin to calm our thoughts, breathing slowly, breathing deeply, allowing our body to relax, mentalizing calmness within us and all around us, feeling the divine energies with soft lights all around us, creating this environment of peace and spiritual welcome. In this moment, we pray to God for our deepest needs as we elevate our thoughts to Jesus and to the good spirits in this spiritual environment. And we begin now with the dispersion pass, this part of the past treatment that begins with the cleansing of our soul. We imagine a waterfall of crystal clear water falling over us, washing away all of the impurities and unwanted energies, washing away all of the sorrows and resentments and anger, cleaning any feelings of hatred or revenge that only hold us back and cause us harm, not even in this life, but also in past ones. And so we visualize the spiritual doctors all around us, cleaning us, applying magnetic cleansing passes, cleaning our spiritual body, cleaning all the negative energies and suffering. And we mentalize these negative thoughts and feelings being washed away, evaporating from our soul like water that evaporates in the air, and being cleansed and taken far away from our mind, body, and spirit. and feeling now spiritually clean and feeling lighter and brighter, we prepare for our replenishment pass, where we invite Jesus to approach us now, to place his hands over our head, and surrounded by this light of love that is coming directly from the hands of Jesus. We imagine the sunlight that involves and illuminates our entire being, that frees us from the chains of everything that has ever tied us down. We feel ourselves involved in these beneficial feelings and feeling relief by receiving these strengthening lights and energies as the spiritual mentors are now applying this divine light to strengthen us, to strengthen our mind, to strengthen our body, to strengthen our spirit, to strengthen our emotions and our mental field. We feel vitalized and feel stronger and grateful for this opportunity to receive blessings from the good spirits. We ask the good spirits now to magnetize our water, to make it a medicine for everything that our mental, physical, and spiritual body needs, that we would be open to the possibility of offering ourselves in charity, that we could provide assistance for others, and by so doing, we could also evolve ourselves and our families. And so with our closing prayer, we thank you, God. We thank you for this opportunity to learn more about the history of the Auta de Souza campaign, this beautiful spirit who has committed herself and so many brothers and sisters who work with her for the healing and assistance of those who are needy, as well as those on the spiritual realm. And we open our hearts to be willing to be of assistance in one way or another, whether to this campaign or to any charity work that allows us the opportunity to release selfishness and be more kind, more humble, and more giving. May the lessons of charity that we learned today land deeply in our soul and remind us of what it is like when we are possible and open to the possibility of loving. Thank you, God, for this opportunity. May the peace of Jesus be with us now and always. So be it. Thank you for being with us tonight, friends. That is what we had time